You know what? We're gonna start with that noise. Get a little seltzer going. You got to keep it real professional at the very beginning. All right. Welcome to the Nosebleeders podcast. Like, subscribe, do all that stuff for us. We appreciate all that. I feel like a cheap person saying that, but anyway, welcome back to the show. Friend of the show, Lee Hacksaw Hamilton. Hello, Lee.
San Diego. Yep. Thank you, sir.
From San Diego.
Good evening. How are you?
Doing good.
We're doing awesome, man. So let's talk some baseball, and then we'll wrap it up with Lee's going to hopefully educate us, which I'm very excited about towards the end. This is going to be pretty cool. So, Lee, we got to talk about the Dodgers versus Padres series that just happened last weekend here. I mean, obviously I'm on the East Coast, but I'm a night owl, so I usually have the game on the radio or something while I'm hanging out playing video games or whatever it is that I do. And this series felt like a playoff series in May, did it not?
It was electric. Petco Park. Yeah. It was like a playoff series. And the Padres came out of character. They played really, really well. They played on the edge. You know, the Friday night game against the Dodgers was unbelievable. Michael King, your ex-Yankee, the first 9 guys he retired, struck out 8 of the first 9. He retired, wound up with 11 Ks on the night. Tyler Glasnow matched him pitch by pitch. He struck out 4 of the first 6, and he wound up with 10 Ks on the game. Glasnow gave up only 1 base hit in his 7 innings. King gave up only 3 base hits, and he was dazzling. Between them, 21 strikeouts. And you know, here's a Padre team that's been up and down, and all of a sudden, here come the Dodgers hitting 270 with like 54 home runs, and the Padres took them off on the first night of the game. And I will tell you, the stadium, it was like an NFL playoff game. I mean, it was wild. But then we flip on Saturday, and Teoscar Hernandez hits a grand slam home run. Padres can't buy a base hit, and the Dodgers blank them 5-0 on the second game. And then we get to the third game, and the Padres spin it right back and post another victory. I mean, it was really impressive. But then, because the Padres are Jekyll and Hyde, they come off the emotional high of what they did against the first place Dodgers.
Yeah.
And they play Colorado. And they lose all 3 to a team that's 8-28.
Yeah.
Go figure that. And they were never in any of those games. They went 3 for 23 with guys in scoring position. Their starting pitching was in the hole from the first inning on every night. It was utterly ridiculous. And the community is so peeved right now at Padre baseball. I'll give you a quote, because I use the quote. I have my big podcast today. I do on Thursdays and Mondays. My lead today on my podcast was 2024 equals 2023 dash underachiever. I mean, the team is under 500 again. The team is 7.5 back of the Dodgers. I don't know how they're going to make up all that ground. And, you know, last weekend I said, they got to win some of these games against LA, because if they don't, they'll be 9.5 out. Well, they won 2 of the 3, and they cut the margin down to 5.5, and now they're 7.5 back. And they're going into Atlanta to play the first place Braves on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. So,
you know, and watch them at least split or take 3 out of 4 there. No, is it fair to say, Lee, that the Padres have played to their level of competition all year? Like, they get up for the big games, but then they kind of just lay down for what should be teams that they dominate?
Padres are 5-3 against the Dodgers. The Dodgers with $290 million payroll.
And it could have been 6-2 if it wasn't for a broken glove.
Yeah. So that's impressive. But here's at the other end of the spectrum. Last year, the Padres were 11-15 against the really bad teams in baseball. 11-15 cost them a playoff berth. Mm-hmm. We're sitting here in mid-May. They're 6-11 already against bad teams in baseball. So, I mean, it is really hard to describe who they are, what they are. You never know what you're going to get. Now, I will tell you, as the Yankees get ready to come in here in a week to play the Padres, I will tell you the Padres are really beat up. Manny Machado is getting 222. I've never seen a slump like this. He's 2 for his last 33. No pop on the ball. He's hitting into double plays. He's hardly hitting any home runs. He's coming off elbow surgery, and I think he's lost strength in his right arm, and that should be the power arm on a swing. I mean, he looks anemic there, and he's not making great plays at third base. I think they need to take him off third, just put him back a designated hitter. But he's not the only one. Xander Bogaerts is hitting like 214. Hassan Kim in a free agent year is hitting 204. So the Padres and runners in scoring position, just brutal statistics. Against the Rocks, 3 for 23 with guys in scoring position. So this team is Jekyll. This team is Hyde. This team is beat up. This team's got the teeth of the schedule right in front of them still. And Mike Schilt is starting to take some real heat from the fans and a little bit of heat from the media. So, you know, did they play down to their level? I think there's explanations why they're struggling. Pitching staff, starters 2 and starters 5 have been negligible, and obviously the Machado injury. So they got a lot of issues. Now you could say, hey, Lee, they got 140 games to play. I understand that. But let's be realistic here. They have no depth in their farm system. They traded a ton of guys away to make these 2 deals that they made. And if they get anybody else who goes down hurt, they might not be a playoff team. And if they're not a playoff team, it'd be the 10th year in a row under AJ Preller, and his job could very well be in jeopardy as general manager. So, guys, I've thrown a lot against the wall, but there's a lot of storylines as to why this thing is sub 500 right now, and who knows what they're going to be like going forward. Because, like I say, they played the Dodgers, they got the Braves, they got the Yankees coming in. They get some good games on the schedule.
Yeah, well, and I actually, side note, I have both Bogaerts and Machado on my fantasy team. So to me, that's my bad on my on some of my higher round drafts there.
Well,
that's kind of my fault.
In this 15 minutes, it's boom. You know, let's see what's going to happen in the next 30 games.
Oh, they're both holds for sure, definitely. I would say it's a little early to do a full-on series preview because we don't even have pitching matchups yet, and the game's not till next weekend as of this recording. But I would say this, as a Yankee fan, it almost feels like a trap series. You know how in football they call some games trap games? Because the Padres are capable. They've shown that they can knock the Dodgers around, who are excellent. So, I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if we go in there and lose 2 out of 3 to the Padres, because they do have some seriously good names on that team. And they do have a ceiling that's very high, which speaks to the frustration of this last decade for that team, because I think this team is very much underachieving right now. Because, like I said, some of the names and some of the ones you just mentioned, it definitely would be frustrating if I was a Southern California or a Southern California fan right now.
Yeah. Well, outside the 2020 COVID season, where they did very well and they knocked the Dodgers out of the playoffs and got to the play the Phillies in the playoffs. But right now they are dinged up. Yu Darvish has been on the DL once already, but he's come back and he's pitched well. Joe Musgrove, who's a real horse in the rotation, has been on the DL twice, and we don't know what he's going to be like coming back. He's got a bicep issue near the top of his elbow. There's a little bit of concern there might be a bone spur in there. That's a problem.
That's
Pitcher
scary.
number 5 is a journeyman knuckleballer, Matt Waldron, whose record's 1-5, and they're going to throw him in Atlanta on Friday night. He's not been consistent at all. And the middle of the relief corps has been really skitterish. If they can get their team to Robert Suarez, the closer, he's phenomenal. He's got 12, 13 saves, and his ERA is like 0.47. But the guys in between, including the ex-Yankee Wandy Peralta, you just never know when the call goes to the bullpen which guy's going to show up, and is he going to be good or is he going to be bad. So they got pitching issues, and they have nothing left in the farm system to bring up. Obviously, Dylan Cease comes from the White Sox and is a horse, and he has a lot more good outings, and he's had some odd bad ones. Michael King, I mean, we had the strikeout performance against the Dodgers. 2 weeks prior to that, he had no hitter into the 7th inning of a game, but against Colorado, he got knocked all over the yard. So he's young, he's hot, he's old. So who knows what this thing's going to be like by the time the Yankees get there. But the Yankees are the Yankees, and the Yankees freaking lineup might be as equal to the Dodgers in terms of the LA batting order. They're the real deal. There's a whole bunch of surprises we can talk about briefly about my West Coast perspective, what the Yankees are doing on the East Coast, because I've been pretty impressed.
I mean, yeah, it's been kind of a relief this year as a Yankee fan to see them actually scoring more than 2 runs a game. But that's kind of a different
not
thing.
By home runs either.
Yeah, exactly. Not solo home runs.
Right.
I did want to ask you, actually, we did mention Michael King who was part of the Juan Soto trade. And you said on your show a couple times that you felt that Preller didn't necessarily get the right pieces back for that trade. So now after seeing Higgy behind the dish, after seeing King with some very high ceiling type performances, and of course, the impending arrival of Drew Thorpe, which may happen either late this year or depending on injuries earlier this year or next year, do you still feel that way? Or has your tune sort of changed seeing the performances of some of these guys?
Well, first things first, I don't think they got the right players by trading an MVP candidate like Soto to the Yankees. I sat out here in West Coast. I wanted Clark Schmidt. Now, Schmidt had not really been a proven commodity up until opening day of this season. And dude was what, 5-1, ERA 1.87, whatever it is. I like Schmidt. I wanted an outfielder as part of the deal. I wanted Jason Dominguez, but I know he's in rehab and recovering from surgery, and who knows what that's going to be like a little bit later. But those were two guys. I like the pitching haul. And, of course, they used Tharp to make the Dylan Cease trade. He's now in Chicago.
Oh, that's right. So, I forgot about that. My bad. Yeah.
I don't know about the other two throw-ins. Randy Vasquez, to me, has not shown he can be in the rotation in the major leagues. He's been one of the problem points when he's been an emergency call-up and he hasn't gotten the job done. And Brito has good innings and then has really crummy innings. He's probably got a little bit more upside than Vasquez. But end of the day, circling back to your original question, I wanted Schmidt. I wanted King. I wanted Dominguez, even though he was hurt. The catcher is the catcher, but he's a backup catcher because Campusano is the man. So I don't think, guys, that they ever got equal. Maybe that's all they could get because Cashman was not going to trade Clark Schmidt. And so that's where we are. I just don't think they got the right deal.
Okay. All right. I mean, no, it's sticking by your guns. I definitely respect that. Now, let's mention real quick before we get to the video portion of the show here. Now, there are some bright spots for the Padres amid all this inconsistency. Luis Arias made his presence felt immediately last week, which I thought was a really fun moment to see from afar. And then you also mentioned Dylan Cease. So it's not all bad news for the team. It's just too much of a mixed bag. Is that fair to say as well?
Well, I think when Cease pitches, you're very optimistic he's going to win the game because he's got dominant physical force stuff. They got a rise. They traded a whole bunch of kids from the farm system. A.J. Preller does what A.J. Preller does. He overpays for everybody. But they got him for 2 years. My only reaction right now, and I like that player, and when that trade came down on a Friday night in the middle of a Friday night game, I thought to myself, they got themselves maybe a Tony Gwynn, or they got themselves a swinger like Rod Carew, or maybe they got themselves a Wade Boggs. Because all you need to do is, guys, look at the statistics of what guys accomplished in Minnesota, what he did in Miami. He goes in here his first game, goes 4 for 5. It was absolutely amazing. I mean, the stadium absolutely went crazy. My only beef right now is all of a sudden Mike Schmidt, the manager, is using him as a rotating platoon guy. Why is he not in the batting order, especially when you got so many other stars that are not hitting? They got a hot young rookie and Jackson Merrill, who's playing center field and playing pretty well and still hitting about 280. And you got Arias, who's got a lifetime batting average at 311 or 330, whatever it is, and was batting around 400 a year ago this week. These guys need to be in the lineup every night. I don't care whether right-hander or left-hander. And I said during this Rocky series, why the hell is Luis sitting on the bench rather than being, even if throwing left-handers, the Rockies are running left-handers out there. Why aren't you doing this? So they got to get the bats back in the lineup because the other bats aren't hitting. They need anybody who can get on base.
The offensive inconsistency is definitely an issue. And of course, as Yankee fans, we hope that continues through next weekend. But who knows? That might be the series that wakes them up, right? Because they wake up for the Dodgers, they get up for them. It might be the same thing for the Yankees. The Yankees might walk into Petco and get beat around 2 out of 3 games. That could absolutely happen.
We saw the Yankees have trouble with the A's, so
exactly.
Crazy things have already happened.
That opened my eyes late at night one night, and I said, how is that possible? I understand losing 2 or 3 to the Orioles, but how is that possible? Just being open.
It was 3 or 4 to the Orioles. It was
Oh,
3 or
yeah.
4 to the Orioles. And well, no, the A's aren't the bottom feeder that they used to be. They're more of like a 500. I honestly like, and this is a totally different topic, but I've been following the Oakland Stadium thing for like more than 20 years pretty closely. And I so badly want to see them make the playoffs this year, just because it would be like the movie Major League, but in real life. Because what they're doing in Oakland's a travesty right now.
Yeah.
The one thing that's kind of unique that's happened is they went out this year and they rented a bunch of fringe veteran players on one-year contracts, and a whole bunch of those guys are having good starts to the season. I don't know if that's going to continue, but they've got maybe 3 or 4 journeymen who come in and wrapped around the young kids, and at this point in time playing well. I just know that the A's have enough arms to hold up over 162 game schedule, and they, like a lot of other people, have had elbow surgeries, multiple elbow surgeries. Just
that's the story of the year so far. I think in baseball is the amount of pitching, especially starting pitching injuries. It's scary, man. It really is. And it's like the union wants to say it's the pitch clock.
Yeah.
But then I think the response to that is always like, well, no, it's because dudes are blowing their arm out because everyone's trying to throw 101 with max spin rate, which is crazy to me.
Yeah, you know, velocity and spin rate is causing everything. And again, everybody does weight training. Everybody trains 11 months out of the year, and the bodies are bigger. Guys are throwing with more force. The only thing that doesn't change through all the weight training, the elbow ligament or the shoulder. And that's when you grip the ball with the strength they're gripping it, and then you snap it. That's what's causing all the problems. I kept track up until about a week and a half ago, and I got so busy doing other things with the NFL draft and everything. There had been 31 surgeries coming from the beginning of spring training till about 2 weeks ago of pitchers, either top prospects or major league pitchers. 31 guys going to be on for a year and a half. And this is all a byproduct of trying to find velo.
And right now it's only the middle of May. So by the end of the year, is that 31 going to be 51, 81? I mean, it's really scary. It really is. And it's I don't know. I just you never root for injuries. You never want to see people get injured. You know, seeing people in pain, kind of not a fan of that. So that's certainly the biggest story. So let's switch gears right now. We have something cool. I actually let's talk a little NASCAR, a little old school NASCAR before Lee runs out on us, because we only have him for a few more minutes here.
Sure.
So I found this out via your show, actually. So the original concept of our show was that we'd watch vintage sports brawls and get drunk and make fun of them and crack jokes and all this stuff. And so when I heard you talking about this 1979 NASCAR brawl on your show, I had to look it up, and I had to leave a comment and all that stuff. And so, Mike, you cut some footage up right now. Let's run this footage, and then Lee, if you'd like to educate us on the cultural significance of this, as well as kind of the play-by-play, if you want, it would be an honor to have you kind of do a vintage brawl with us. So it'd be pretty cool.
Sure.
Mike, you have the video that you ripped earlier?
I have it. It's Daytona 500, 1979. Donnie Allison fights Cale Yarborough, and I cut it and I can explain what's going on. There's no audio, so I'll just bring up the video and we'll take a look.
Definitely. So take it away, gentlemen.
So here's Donnie.
They're swapping paint. That's what they do, and they knock themselves out of the race right at the end, and they all kind of skidded into the infield about the same area. Yarborough came out of his car. Allison came out of his car. Next thing you know, they were yapping at each other. Next thing you know, they're throwing punches. Next thing you know, pit crews and other drivers are going there trying to stop this fight. And the real background story on this, guys, this was the first NASCAR race ever that was televised nationally. And it was televised. It was in, I guess, January. Mike, you might correct the date, but it was televised while there was a blizzard in the Northeast. So everybody is stranded at home, and they saw this, and people started getting addicted, because up until that point, NASCAR was a good old boy network thing in the Deep South. They weren't running at Watkins Glen, and they weren't running in California. They weren't running at Texas Speedway or Indianapolis. It was all the small and big tracks. And this thing shows up on TV, and it's must see because of the brawl. And suddenly people are excited, and they've decided, hey, I think I'll watch the next weekend's NASCAR race. And that's how the sport took off. It was historically, the first great TV game in the NFL, you'll remember this, New York Giants, Baltimore Colts, 1958 championship game. I was a kid. I was a young kid. I saw that.
Did he hit him with his helmet? Oh my God! Sorry to catch you.
Yeah, they're
swing his helmet at him. That was amazing.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Well, I hit him with a helmet because he didn't have a monkey wrench in the car that he could pull out to use.
Yeah, fair enough.
pretty much. And Richard Petty ended up winning the race because these guys, I don't know what they were placing, but it looked like they were going to finish and they were fighting to win. And Richard Petty ended up winning the race. Do you know if that impacted how Richard Petty won? Was that why he won? Because these two guys skidded out?
I think he was probably racing for third. These guys wiped themselves out going to the last lap. Petty winds up finishing. So I mean, it's fascinating. But as I said, the New York Giants, Baltimore Colts, 1958 championship game. That was the first game on network TV in the NFL, and everybody says that's where fans got addicted to the NFL on television because of the Baltimore Colts Giants game. I think it was at Yankee Stadium on a Sunday in the championship game, and people got addicted to this after they saw what Yarborough and Allison did, and everybody got involved. So fascinating how the thing took off.
Little history right here. Yeah, this is we thrive on looking up this old stuff because it's amazing. A lot of the stuff we watch is for fun and we crack jokes, but to see this, how it brought NASCAR and the Daytona 500 to the forefront and how popular it is now, it's impressive. We covered a fight where they used to have two, I forget the hockey players, but they were in the same penalty box. They started beating each other up in the penalty box, and that's why they have separate penalty box. So it's interesting to come across brawls that have significance in changing the sports forever.
Well, I broke in. My first broadcasting job was broadcasting minor league hockey back east, Eastern Hockey League, Comac Arena, and all that stuff. And that was the era of the Broad Street bullies and the brawls. And in the lower minor leagues, it was commonplace. It was unbelievable. And I don't know if you guys have seen the movie Slapshot. 90% of Slapshot is true. And I was there because I was in that league. That was in 1975. And the point of the movie Slapshot were the brothers, the Hanson brothers, their real names were the Carlson brothers of the Johnstown Jets, went over the glass into the stands. That was in our building in Utica, New York.
Were you doing the play-by-play for that?
Yes.
I love that.
One of the Carlsons scored a goal. And they were just a bunch of goons. And as they're skating off the ice, somebody from behind the bench threw ice cubes at them. And I'm writing on my score sheet. I'm halfway up the stands. I'm writing on my score sheet, Johnstown goal at 8:51, Jack Carlson, slap shot. And I look up, and here comes the entire Johnstown team over the glass, swinging their sticks. And the fans they're swinging them back at the players. And virtually everything in that movie is true. They were arrested in the dressing room.
Oh, wow.
In their uniform, marched out of the Utica Memorial Auditorium across the street to the police station, which is right across from the Aud. And they got charged with simple assault, and it was it's history, and it's true.
Oh man,
we got to cover that, Bill.
Yeah, is there footage of that anywhere, or is that like too low of a league for there to be cameras in the building? I mean,
it's probably too early in the minor leagues, but there's some still photos around. I'm sure if you just Google Johnstown Jet brawls, you'll find a whole bunch of things.
We will look that up. We also did a brawl. Remember, Mike? We did the brawl where the Bruins crawled in the stands and started fighting fans in
the Rangers, 1979 at the Garden. They crawled.
Something about 79, man. Yeah. People wanted to brawl.
And go to
Terry O'Reilly was probably on that team. He was probably first guy over the glass.
Yeah. We appreciate your time. I did want to ask some Juan Soto stuff, but I'm hoping maybe later in the year we can.
You have a minute?
I wanted to ask, with Soto now being on the Yankees and obviously how well he's doing with the Yankees, do you think the Padres would be, obviously they would be better with him, but do you think their problems run so deep that even with Juan Soto, this team would be having struggles?
Well, if they were there and if they could afford him, he'd make everybody around him a much better guy.
Yeah.
Now, we only saw flashes of a really good Soto in chunks of time. When he got here 2 years ago in the trade from Washington, he didn't hit. He hit like 230. Yeah. And last year, first third of the season, he was miserable and his mechanics were all screwed up. And I mean, the Padres weren't playing very well. Nobody was playing very well. They all underachieved last year. He got hot from about June 1st on, and he really played like a superstar, but the team around him did not rally. Now, he's surrounded by pretty good people there. My only question about Soto going into New York was he going to be able to cope with the pressure? And it's a fishbowl. It's a lot of pressure on these guys. Some guys handle it, other guys don't. I am surprised. Maybe it's just a byproduct. He's off to a really, really great start. I think he's hitting 301 with maybe 12 bombs already. And
he's been amazing. Yeah.
He's got home run hitters all around him. Now, some of those guys, Stanton and those guys aren't hitting for average, but they do have a lot of bats in that Yankee lineup. And I'm pretty impressed. And if they could ever get the entire team healthy, I mean, I like Volpe, and obviously he's having a great start in left field.
Yes.
Soto is. If Stanton could ever shove all the injuries into the rearview mirror and be what he used to be in Miami, and then you add in all these other guys that I think are pretty good role players, they've got a good team. And for them to be in first place tonight with Garrett Cole not having thrown a pitch yet is amazing. And when the season started, I thought they were in trouble because you had so many question marks. You had question marks with Cortez, had question marks with all the ongoing injuries that Rodon had.
Rizzo too.
I didn't think Clark Schmidt was going to be 5-1 out of the gate, even though I wanted him in the Soto trade. So suddenly, Yankees, if they could get everybody healthy on the same page, they could be what the Dodgers are here on the West Coast. I think the Yankees have potential as soon as Cole comes back and hopefully doesn't have any relapses.
Yeah.
All right.
And they're playing a lot of small ball. They look good. The only other thing I wanted to ask is if the Padres continue to play like they play now, do you think they're going to be sellers at the deadline and this whole experiment with the signing of free agents the past few years, it's not going to work? Or do you think they're going to try to hang on to this and salvage it?
That's a good question. Right now they're 7.5 back. I mean, I don't see that they've got enough to close the gap on the Dodgers unless the Dodgers get hurt. That becomes a big issue. They don't have a lot to trade. That's the other issue. Nobody wants Machado's contract. They're not going to trade Tatis, although he's not as well as he has in the past. You can't trade Bogarts. You can't trade Cronenworth because they've all got these 7 and 12 and 14-year contracts at crazy dollars. The one they could trade might be the shortstop Hassan Kim because he's an impending free agent. But if dude is hitting 204, does a change of address really help him? I fear that all the scouting reports have caught up to Kim, and that's why he's hitting 204, whereas last year he ambushed an awful lot of people. So I think the roster they have is the roster they're going to go forward with. They've got about $8 million left in their budget because they have to stay below the luxury tax. They got about $8 million left. So maybe there is another deal coming. I don't know if it's for a bat or another arm. But the problem is you're going to trade more from the farm system. You're stripping the farm system down for a third time in the 9 years that Keller's been general manager. So those are areas that, I call him out on my talk show, and I happen to like him, but I don't agree with the way he's conducted business. And, if he has to make another trade and he trades 2 or 3 more of the blue chips, there'll be hardly any blue chips left. And that's where we just came from. So I think the roster they have is the roster they're going to have to try to get through this season because nobody wants the big money contracts.
Gotcha.
All right.
All right.
That was a good question to end on. Lee, as always, thank you so much for your time, man.
Thank you.
I really appreciate it. We'll hit you up in a few months or hit me up. Do whatever we got to do. It's always a joy, man. Thank you so much.
We'll chat again. And, hey, check my podcast out. It's on YouTube.
Yes.
It's Lee Hacksaw Hamilton. Subscribe because we put a lot of junk on my YouTube channel all the time. Now, I apologize if you start getting dings at 2:30 in the morning, but that's on you living on the coast. But subscribe and check my website because it's all written. You won't find this volume of information anywhere else at leehacksawhamilton.com. Guys,
I will second that. It's a good little cheat sheet for those of us who maybe you don't know about a certain sport and you want to know more about, say, hockey or football. He does little one-line blurbs so you can say, oh, that's what that team's doing. So in case somebody asks you a question, you act like you know what you're talking about, which is good.
And you are right. I am bleeping brilliant.
Yeah. And the IG video, the IG videos you do are great. They're actually very much ahead of the curve of what a lot of people are doing. I enjoy those so much. Those are very well done. So
guys, we'll talk to you
soon, man. Have a great night, Lee.